My name is Lu Ki Hong, Singaporean. I like the budget very, very much. It's because it's focusing on the elderly, the people with disabilities, and also the low income. An area which I believe that in the past budgets, the government, for whatever reason, did not pay enough attention. Right? So this is a good thing. And Mrs. Josephine Teo talked about this year focus is on this lot of people, but I believe this lot of people is fundamental to Singapore because Singapore is a fast-aging populations. That has to be a permanent feature. It's not going to be the focus for the year. It's not going to be a flavor for the year. All right. The other thing I want to ask is about the transportations, since you are also the MOS for transportations. I'm a bit puzzled as to why we need to spend 1.1 billion to fund the bus company. So a lot of people, I'm sure, are asking the same questions. All right. So my point is this. Should we take a step back and decide for ourselves, for Singapore, do we really need to consider, should public transportations be privatized or should it become nationalized? All right. Thank you.
I really appreciate your questions regarding the enhancement that we're trying to do to buses. Just to put the figures in context first, $1.1 billion is over 10 years. So what it means is that on average, because the buses are going to be front-loaded, so what it means is that we'll buy them first and then let them run for a number of years. So it's not exactly $110 million each year, but on average, that would be about the number. The other numbers that were cited for the other programs, sometimes we are talking about 5-year period, so they are not entirely comparable. But that's just firstly to give the number in context. What we are having to deal with right now is a level of service that Singaporeans would like to see improve significantly in buses and actually in public transport in general. Now, public transport, the two main modes, now, today, 60% buses, 40% in our MRT, the rail. The rail system, we are investing heavily in it, and new trains are being bought, new lines are being built. So in fact, between now and 2016, every year we're adding a rail extension or a new rail line. Now, so this capacity is gradually being built up, and we're confident that this capacity will meet Singaporeans' needs, but it takes time. So in the meantime, we're looking at the situation and saying that, can we find a way to somehow also step up the service levels so that Singaporeans can enjoy reduced waiting times as well as higher level of comfort when they're on public transport? And we have to ask ourselves this question, what is the best way of doing it? What is the quickest way of doing it? And the result is quite clear. We should find a way to inject bus capacity. So increasing the bus capacity is one shorter way to improve public transport service levels. So that's firstly why we choose to inject and build up the bus capacity in this time. Now then we have to ask ourselves this question, if we want to build up bus capacity quickly, should we set up another company to do it? Should we find other possible operators, right? And this could include private operators or who are interested to start up express buses and so on. Or is using the current bus operators a quicker way to get the capacity up? And as you know, if we want to start something from scratch, it takes a bit more time. People have to get the resources organized. They have to think about, okay, how do we set up the operations and so on. And we think that what Singaporeans want is quicker solution. They don't want to wait so long. So it's with Singaporeans' needs in mind that we assessed that the better way to do it, the faster way to do it, the more efficient way of doing it is to partner the existing public transport operators to deliver the increase in the capacity. And that is why this bus services enhancement program is done together with them, in partnership with them. So To meet the ridership growth, the public transport operators do have an obligation, and they have to fund an increase of 250 buses. What the government is coming in to fund, to help, is to increase the fleet size by a much more significant quantum so that the service levels can be brought up to an even higher level than what was previously set. So that sort of gives you the explanation and why we are doing this. Now, the question is that this 1.1 billion, really, is it fair or is it correct to say that it's going to the bus company? Well, think of it this way. These buses will require bus drivers, and I think it's well known enough that in order to bring on board, to recruit more bus drivers, we will probably have to look at their wage levels and see to what extent they can be improved. Now, also at the same time, there are fuel costs. There are operational expenses that will be incurred. And when you think about it, these new buses are coming in, and for example, if they are being added to the feeder services, it's actually the same people who are taking the feeder services, but we're trying to increase the frequency. So what it means is that fewer people on each bus, but what it means is that in total, the revenues collected for that service isn't changed just because you put in more buses. Now, what that means is that it actually increases the cost to the transport operators quite significantly. And I think we have to overcome this problem so that we can quickly introduce these bus service enhancements so that commuters can benefit. So the way that could be done in order to fund this increased cost is fares, and that will be very costly. So between funding this through a big increase in fares or government coming in to inject to the system the resources that will purchase this additional 550 buses, we thought that it was a better thing to do. Otherwise, it will put a lot of burden on fares, which eventually also goes back to the commuters. So between the two, we have to make a choice. It has to be funded. It cannot come out of nowhere. All right. Now, what it means, however, is that the public transport operators will be expected to raise the service standards, not only for this 550 buses, it will have to be across the entire fleet of buses that they run. So that's exactly what we're doing, and it's the starting point. The starting point is the commuters, his affordability, his service experience, rather than what is the public transport operator's interest. So I hope that gives you sort of the explanation and the background, the thought process that went in, and why at this moment we're looking at the bus injection in this way. Now I think is it Mr. Lu or Luke? Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu asked a very relevant question, which is that is the model for us to deliver public transport services optimal? Could there be a better way of doing it? I fully agree with you that it is something that we have to ask, that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is this the best way of doing it? Or is there a more sustainable model that will keep fares affordable and at the same time provide the impetus for continuous service improvements? That's something that we have to look at. But the challenge that we put on ourselves is that to come to the right answer will require detailed study, and that will take some time. We don't want to hold back the improvement to the bus services whilst we are doing the study, whilst we're finding the best solution forward. So we say that, okay, you can't say that, we're studying the problem, so in the meantime, please bear with it. We say, okay, let's adopt a practical approach. Increase the bus capacity anyway, but at the same time, study the model and see whether there's a better way going forward. So I hope that Mr. Lu can give you the assurance. We don't take it for granted that we have the best model. We are continuous looking at ways in which we can improve it.